Hey guys, this is Mistress Nightmare here, and today we'll be reading Free Me, Chapter 7. Before we get started, please hit that like button, comment, subscribe to this channel if you want more creepypasta fanfictions out there. Until then, let's get started. I slowly stood up, eyeing Max suspiciously. Why did you lock the door? I chuckled nervously. Mac just shrugged and gave me a strange look. We don't want anyone to interrupt us. He started getting closer, forcing me to back up against the wall. What are you doing? I asked, fear evident in my voice. I wanted you for so long, Elizabeth, and I always get what I want. Realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Ben was right. Mac didn't care about me. I'm sorry, but I'm leaving. I tried to maneuver around him, but Mac placed an arm on both of my shoulders and blocked my escape. Mac, please let me go, I growled and kneed him in the groin. Mac groaned in pain as I took the opportunity to run straight towards the door. I pulled and hit it. Please, someone help me. Someone open the door. I wiggled the door handle and pounded on the door until my hands stung. It was no use. The music was way too loud for anyone to hear me. They would assume someone was just banging upstairs. Anyway, I turned around and saw my phone on the floor a few feet away. I tried to reach for it, but Mac was quicker and kicked it out of sight. The lightheadedness was beginning to get worse as I stumbled. Mac grabbed a hold of me by my wrist and pulled me towards him. I let out a scream and tried biting and scratching him, but Mac had the upper hand. After all, he was much stronger than me. Don't worry, Elizabeth, he said. In a few moments, you won't be able to protest. I felt my heart sink. True to his words, I could feel the numbness sensation in my body. You bastard! Did you drug me? After a few seconds, I went completely limp, unable to move on my own. I just lay there helpless as Mac carried me over to his bed. I screamed in my head, hoping someone would come through the door and save me. But my parents were home, Alex was nowhere, and Ben could care less. Everyone else was drunk or high as a kite. My luck was just perfect. Before Mac could crawl on top of me, an eerie green light filled the room, causing him to pause and look around confused. What the hell is this? He asked. Suddenly his skin turned deadly pale as his eyes became bloodshot, and he fell over, gasping at his throat. His eyes widened. It was a horrifying sight as his veins bulged, his ears began to bleed, and his eyes rolled back. And then he stopped moving completely, and I allowed myself to faint. Elizabeth, can you hear me? I woke up to a familiar voice. I quickly sat up, immediately regretting it. I felt a strong throb in my head. I quickly went back into my bed, still wearing the dress from the party. Take it easy. You were drugged pretty up badly. I looked up and spotted Ben sitting on the edge of my bed. His eyebrows were furrowed, and his piercing red eyes watched me intensely. My memory was fuzzy, but I remember being alone with Mac and that strange green light. What happened to me? Ben frowned at me, folding his arms. You were being stupid. That's what happened. Did you save me? I asked, massaging my temple. Of course I did. He glared at me. How? Ben just laughed then. Did you actually think turning off your phone was enough to stop me? I got inside your little boyfriend's phone when you texted him. You better be glad that I did. I winced at my headache and squinted at him. Why? His smug look faded away. Why what? Why did you do it? Save me then. I thought you hated me. I looked down at my hands. They were a bit shaky. Ben sighed and turned his body away from me slightly. I tolerate many evil things, but rape is not one of them. Trust me, if I hated you, you would have been dead long time ago. Just like your little friend Mac here is. I scowled at the friend bit. I see. You were stupid. I told you not to go with him, and I thought you were smarter than that. There's like at least 100 movies explaining, or as example of why taking an open drink is going to a boy's room in a party is a bad idea. He pressed his temple and shook his head. Like, seriously, how stupid can you get? I sighed and looked at him. Thank you for saving me. Ben seemed to be shocked that I was thanking him. He looked away from me and shrugged. Yeah, it's whatever. Your parents know what happened to Mac, but they believe he died from a heart attack. And you came home on your own. Was that you? Yeah, I killed him. I dragged your sleepy ass home. Worse than the chores on Saturday. I figured. I said quietly. Can I ask you something? What? Were you always like this? All electronic and ghostly and stuff? Ben frowned. Why are you asking? Because I don't want to hate you anymore. You seem to have a heart enough to save me. I just want to know about you. Your past, Ben sat there quietly, thinking to himself. Then he turned to me and nodded. Fine, whatever. I'll show you. With that, a beam of green light and red swirled and jumped around the two of us. It was like cyclic and trippy. I almost fainted. I could feel tingling sensation through my entire body as my room began to fade. I opened my eyes. I was in the neighborhood I recognized, in the part of town. Ben appeared next to me and began walking towards a house a few yards away. There was a single light coming from the top of the window. In blinking motions, I was inside. It was a child's bedroom. There was a video game poster and TVs along with a small bed and a dresser. The door to the bedroom opened and a young boy about 16 walked in. He had blonde hair, blue eyes similar to Ben's, but he didn't seem to notice that I was there. He sat down in front of a Nintendo 64 and turned it on. He took out the cartridge from his pocket and plugged it in. The screen's familiar video game appeared, Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. The boy's eyes lit up as he played the game. I turned to Ben. Is that you? Ben simply nodded and kept his fixed gaze as in a trance. I heard something hit the window. Ben stood and went towards the window and opened it. I and Ben walked over to peer down. Standing in the yard were two boys. They look about the same age as Ben. Hey Ben, one of the taller ones called. We're going to skip rocks at the lake. Wanna come? Ben nodded and closed the window. He turned off the game and put the cartridge back in his pocket. Grabbing his green jacket and running downstairs, I was about to follow, but Ben touched my shoulder. The same green light came again, and the vision of Ben's room faded. It was a place with a small lake. I could see Ben and the other two boys approaching from a distance. They stopped at the lake, and the taller one turned towards Ben. Okay, let's go for a swim. Ben looked a little stunned, but what? Come on, don't be lame. The water is perfect. He reached over and picked up Ben and placing him on his shoulders. Ben let out a distrusted yelp as he tried to get down, but the boy ran into the deeper part of the water, up to his neck, and the smaller one was still on the shore watching happily, seeming not to notice how nervous Ben was. In one swift movement, the boy leaned forward and dunked Ben into the water. The boy struggled and gasped, clinging onto the taller boy's arm. The boy took a hold of Ben's head and forced it under the water. I could see Ben trying to get some air as the two boys laughed. Come on, Ben. You could hold your breath longer than that. I looked over to Ben in horror. He just closed his eyes and turned away. I looked back at the two boys in the water. That's when I noticed Ben wasn't moving. There you go, man. You just gotta relax and hold your breath. You're really at 30. Jeremy? The smaller boy called. Something's not right. The taller boy, Jeremy, looked down at the boy in his hands that was still under the water. Jeremy pulled him up and examined his face. He was pale and unmoving. His wet golden hair clung to his face as he remained still. Holy shit, I think he's dead, Jeremy said quietly as he shook Ben's shoulders. No response. Oh my God, someone help him. I whispered under my breath. Ben turned towards me as I started to run towards the boys. Jeremy had dragged Ben to the land and didn't seem to know CPR. Look, man, let's get out of here. I am not trying to get into jail. The smaller boy whispered. Jeremy nodded and stood and followed the boy as they ran away from the lake, out of sight. I was disgusted. How dare they leave him like this? How dare they? I fell to my knees beside Ben's body. He looked so peaceful. Tears began to prick at my eyes. I made a hesitant move to reach down to touch him, but my hand goes through his body like smoke. I just remembered this was just a vision of a past. This had already happened. I stood slowly and wiping my tears from my eyes. He was so innocent. He was just a kid. He didn't deserve this. I walked over back to Ben, who watched me with an unreadable expression. Suddenly, an old man came through the clearing. He walked inside a slight limp and one eye glazed over. He noticed the body and picked it up and walked away with it. Ben motioned me to follow him, and I eventually ended up in the same old house at the edge of my neighborhood. The old man carried Ben's body inside, and placing it on the sofa, dialing his number on his house phone. Hello? Yes, I found a young boy near the lake. I don't think he's alive. Please send help. The old man walked over to Ben and brushed his wet hair out of his face. He leaned down forwards, staring into something in Ben's pocket. A green light began to glow faintly. I turned towards Ben. What's that? Ben turned towards me and said, That's me. The old man reached down and pulled the Majora's Mask cartridge from Ben's pocket and examining it. The eerie green glow gave it some spark to the man to put it in his own pocket. When the police and paramedics arrived, they announced that Ben had died by drowning, biting my lower lip from quivering at the dreadful words. His parents arrived a few minutes later as his mother screamed and cried as his father stood there in disbelief, running his fingers through his hair as he was seeing this wasn't real. It was too much to watch. My eyes welled up with tears as my shoulders shook. I began to sob quietly as I covered my ears to mask the sounds of the mother's despair cries. I sniffled from My sniffles seemed to grab Ben's attention, and he noticed that I was crying. He sighed and placed his hand on my shoulder. Once again, I saw the green and red light, and the vision of Ben's death faded. It was replaced with a warm spring air, bright sunlight. I was outside the old man's house. He had a garage sale. It was open. There was tables with items on them. Some items looked odd. A car pulled up from the garage sale, and a young man stepped out. I immediately recognized him. Alex? I walked towards him and stared. He looked so much happier and healthy than the last time I seen him. He had his everything sunglasses propped on his head as he was chewing gum. He walked over to the table, and the old man greeted him. I can tell the old man made Alex uncomfortable. "Well then, what are you looking for, young man?" the old man said, motioning to the tables in front of him. Do you have any old video games?" Alex responded. The old man's eyes lit up. "Actually, I have a few old box. I'll be right back in a jiffy." The old man disappeared inside the garage. Alex waited patiently, as I secretly wish he could see me. He began to look through the many items on the table and stopped when he saw a black box paper and held the sticker resembling Majora's Mask. The old man was there again. He jumped back a bit, startled. The old man handed him a cartridge that was owned by Ben. The gray cartridge with the words Majora's Mask written on the black paper, permanent marker. "How much do you want for it?" Alex asked. The old man just shook his head. "It's yours, for free. It used to belong to a boy about your age, but he doesn't live here anymore." The old man phrased it seemed that put both me and my brother off. "Thanks," Alex said, turning and heading back towards his car. Before he got inside, the old man smiled and said, "Have fun, and goodbye, Ben." I suddenly was back in my room. I looked over at Ben. "So now you know," he said. "I'm sorry. I had no idea," I whispered. "There's nothing you could have done. By the time your brother received the cartridge, I was very angry, vengeful. I wanted to see people suffer with no one to save them, just like me," Ben said sadly. I looked at my hands and held them back at him. "I wish I could have saved you." He froze, then glanced at me, his eyes widened in shock. He looked so much like the boy I have seen in the vision. So lost and innocent. I wanted nothing more than to hold him. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. I'm glad. If you want more Ben Drowned love stories, check out the playlist that will be popping up soon. Also, if you want any more fanfictions narrations, please check out my other channel, Reading with Blade, which has multiple fanfictions up already. If you are interested in the yaoi experience, check out Tyler O'Connell's channel if you want to go there. But note that channel is only 18 and up. I've been listening to Tyler's stories and I'm addicted to them. Until then, bye guys!